and welcome to Hosting HR with me, Leon Morley, founder of HR Recruitment Solutions. I'm absolutely delighted to have a fantastic panel with us today. Natal, I don't know why you're not with us at this stage. Let me see if I can add you in. So we'll do introductions shortly, but if you're watching, really keen for you guys to get involved. Drop us a like, send us some comments, any questions that you'd like to get across to the panel. We'd certainly like to hear them. I'll certainly try and get them onto the show as well. What we'll do is we're going to discuss whether it's time to say goodbye to the HR business partner today, and I'm sure we'll discuss some other things around the HR profession and its future as well. But let's start with some introductions, and it's very, very exciting for me because two of the people on this panel are YouTube stars, really, in particular. So let's start with ladies first. Natal, can you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi, I'm Natal Dank, and I head up learning, coaching, and culture at PXO Culture, and we specialize in people experience and operations, all of course with an agile mindset. And I wrote a book called Agile HR. So, and I do something called Talking HR Trends with Natal and Tom, and my mate is on here as well.
I think, the book, obviously, I talk to a lot of HR professionals, Natal, and when I talk to them and they mention this book, it seems to have really resonated with a lot of people. There's Tom with it, and I know it's in the background as well on your picture. So it's...
What you mean, this book?
Yeah, and another one there. Several copies that we've got. But no, I certainly making an impact in terms of with the profession, and looking forward to hearing more about Agile HR and some of your insights and things as well.
It has been really lovely how people have got in touch to say that they found it really practical and useful, which is what it's all about. So that's really great.
Yeah, fab. It makes sense probably to go to Tom then, considering you mentioned the Talking HR Trends YouTube channel. So Tom, please, I think you're probably maybe the most known in terms of the four of us, but please do tell us, for those that aren't aware, a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself to the audience.
No, so I'm Tom Haak. I'm director of the HR Trend Institute. So since 2014, I'm a trend watcher in the domain of people and organization. I write about it, I speak about it, and I do videos like the series Talking HR Trends with Natal and Tom that we publish weekly. So on YouTube and elsewhere, you can find a lot of information about me and things I've written or, done in another way.
Yeah. And I saw, I think it was Thinkers 360 and various other ranking lists of key influencers, and you were very high, shall we say. I think you were fourth on the list that I looked at. So, quite modest about it, though.
Yeah, that's. I'm always personally very suspicious about these lists. So I would, but I won't underplay myself. But whether I'm number 3 or 4 or 50, in a sense, who cares?
That's cool. That's cool. Well, I'm really pleased that you've taken the time this evening, and hopefully you won't miss that Champions League match later on this evening.
Absolutely.
Kerry, absolute pleasure to have you on. It was the discussions that we've had so far. I've been really keen to make sure that you would join us in the discussion on this. So it'd be great for you to introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, okay. I'm not the YouTube star, by the way. And I've made a fire.
Yet.
Yes.
You are tonight.
So I'm Kerry Goodman. I'm the Group HR Director at Brightside Insurance. We're an insurance broker of niche insurance products, so working in the financial services industry.
Yeah, thank you. And one of the things that we'll come on to this a bit later with Kerry, but very, very interesting background and a fantastic innovator in terms of HR, because Kerry was very much a HR business partner and is now in a sort of leadership level positions, has taken a slightly different route in terms of how she organises her team and function and how they deliver their service. So that's why I was particularly excited to get you into this particular show and onto this discussion. So yeah, thank you for taking the time this evening. So that's kind of the professional introductions done.
And who are you then? Who are you?
So, well, I'm the host of this show, Host in HR, founded this. I've spent sort of 10 years working with HR professionals in an international sort of capacity, mostly with sort of leadership level HR. But you know, I've placed everything from sort of entry level up to board level and C-suite level, and sort of 10 years HR recruitment experience. And then I launched HR Recruitment Solutions on the 25th of January of this year. So we're quite a new company, a startup, but certainly, yeah, I've got plenty of years of experience in it. But thanks for asking, Tom. So what I wanted to do, and those that watched Host in HR so far, we do like to make this a little bit less informal. Of course, we want good content and some interesting points of view, but we want to play a little bit of a game. And the game is something that we call 2 lies and 1 truth. It's quite a simple game. Many of you probably have done this on like little icebreaker sessions in workshops or whatever else. But basically, we'll each tell 3 facts about ourselves. And then from those facts, 2 of which will be lies and 1 of which will be a truth. So who would like to tell us their 3 facts about themselves first? Any volunteers?
Go on, I will.
Come on, Kerry. I'm going to write them down at the same time, so just so you can come back to them at the end of the show.
So, first one, I've been bitten by a redback spider and lived to tell the tale. 2, Sir Tom Jones is my uncle. 3, I am a huge Man United fan.
Okay. Manchester United. Okay.
Where did you grow up, Kerry?
I'm a West Country lass, if you haven't worked out that.
She's definitely not from Lancashire. I think that's might be, but it doesn't mean anything because there are Manchester United fans all over. We'll come back at the end of the show and we'll all reveal our truths. I'm very, very interested to know what those are. So, Natal, do you want to do yours?
Sure. I am born in Scotland. I grew up in Sydney, and I have an Aussie and a British passport.
Okay. So grew up in Sydney, and what was the other one? An Aussie
born in
and
Scotland, grew up in Sydney, and an Aussie and British passport.
Okay. Okay. Tom?
Yeah, so I have 3 objects to illustrate it.
Okay.
One, in the room next to here, I have a very big collection of miniature cars. Yes.
Okay.
And this is, I took one of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Secondly, it's the same football. I'm a big fan of Inter Milan.
Inter Milan. Okay.
Inter Milan
fan.
is my club.
Yeah.
And the last one is Rubik's Cube. You all know Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
I can do this within 10 seconds.
No, I don't believe that one. I don't believe that. 10 seconds. I don't know if
it's true, I will show it.
Yes, please. Yeah, 34 years. I've still never completed one, so I'm not sure about 10 seconds. Although I do know there's a bit of a way of doing it. So stay with us to the end of the show. We'll obviously all reveal our truths. But obviously, let's get down to the topic of, is it time to say goodbye to the HR business partner? Now, this sort of came about very much inspired by Tom. I was actually watching one of Tom's YouTube channel shows, and I think it was 11 trends, I think, for 2021. And I think this was the 3rd one, and it really kind of struck me and resonated with me. And I was really quite interested by it. So, Tom, can you explain sort of where what this trend is, and really in terms of what's happening with the HR business partner role from what you're seeing.
Yeah, so it's the short story is that, and probably it started in the 90s of the last century, when HR was evolving, and then Dave Ulrich came with his famous Dave Ulrich model. We all know it, and with the 4, you could say, roles of HR: administrative expert, employee champion, change agent, and strategic advisor. And that was an excellent model. But if you ask people which of those roles do you want to be, then people didn't say administrative expert. Some said employee champion. Most said, I want to be a strategic advisor. Maybe. And that evolved into the HR business partner concept. We are HR, are not administration. No. And we are not the advocates of the people. We are business partners. We are part of the business, and we should be in the management team. And then you get the terrible phrase, which we all have heard many times as well. We need a seat at the table. Why? We deserve a seat at the table. So that went on and on since 1990 up till today. Yeah. The reality is that if you look how that evolved, many HR business partners, if you look what they are actually doing work-wise, 70-80% of that work is operational work. It's not strategic, it's not change agent, it's operational work. Partly that is caused because in many big organizations, there are more and more, they were growing. Everybody wanted his or her business partner, every unit. So that led to unhappiness, especially in larger organizations. I'm not so much talking about smaller organizations. They say, what are they doing? And can we organize it in a different way? And also the employees were saying, we always see those business partners together with management in their management meetings, but what are they doing for us? Yeah. So now I think that it's going back. We see already more and more attention to employee experience. What is more focus on the people. We also see more focus on operations. Yes, because part of the employee experience also is very much determined by how well your operations run, and you see at least the number of the HR business partners in organizations that are restructuring, you see that diminishing. And I said goodbye. I think that of course we need some strategic advisors, architects, etc., but probably a lot less than we have today, and more focus on those other areas. So that's the short story.
Very, very interesting indeed. I've just seen quite a few comments. I'm just going to bring up on here. Sev, really good to see you. It's been a while since we've caught on. We've had a few predictions as well in terms of so Kerry 2. So that was the Tom Jones. One, and then a few on the Tom Jones. Seems to be Caroline Bixby there, and also Naomi, non-executive director of HR Recruitment Solutions. So very, very interesting in terms of what you were referring to there, Tom. Kerry, it makes sense to come to you really in terms of, obviously, as I mentioned at the beginning really of the show, that you inherited a HR function and you had business partners, and then you were a business partner. So I suppose building on and sort of building on what Tom said, what was the thought process when you inherited the HR team that you did at Brightside? What is it that made you decide to structure it in a different way? And can you explain to us how it's structured and how it works within your organization?
Yeah, no, absolutely. When I joined Brightside, so Brightside are a portfolio business. So, we're owned by a series of investors. And I think what's very clear when you work for a portfolio business is that, ultimately the outcome is the same. And that is to eventually sell the business for more profit than was paid for it. just to keep that really simply. And in order to do that, it was important that we had an effective and stable business from a people perspective. And we didn't have that. We were hemorrhaging people like you wouldn't believe. You know, we were having turnover around 60-70% in some areas of our business. And we had a business partner model. And the one thing I found very, very quickly was that there was a lack of accountability in the business partner model. So the business partners that I had at the time, really great people, really great business partners, but weren't able to articulate accountability to me. And I clearly had to prepare a very strategic plan that focused around transformational change. And in order for me to do that, so I am a generalist. As an HR director, I am a generalist, and I am a business partner. I'm a business partner to the board in the business. So I do believe in the business partner role, but it has to sit appropriately, and it has to be very clear around its purpose. And purposefulness was missing from the roles within my team. And the transformational change program that I had to deliver told me that I needed experts to help me do that. So it was very important for me to surround myself by people that could advise me and work with me and become experts in a particularly given area. So it was very clear that I had to understand what was causing our business to hemorrhage. And in order to do that, I had to get underneath why people were leaving us, what experience they were going through whilst they were employed by us, and actually what the hiring process was looking like. So in order to do that, I had to have data to tell me what was happening. And, you know, data is fundamentally critical to tell you what is happening in a business. And guess what? There are a lack of analysts in an HR function. Yeah. I quickly established an analyst within my team, and, you know, we developed and worked together. And that analyst was absolutely critical to tell me what was happening in the business. So first of all, I built an analytical function to help me understand what was happening, because I don't preach to be the expert in that, but I need somebody to be able to do that and gather that information for me. And then together it told us the story of what was happening. Then I had to focus on, actually, let's put aside what are operational tasks, what are business as usual tasks, because all of that needs to continue. Support needs to continue. Transactional activity needs to continue. So that was headed up as an operational. So I refer to that as a people operation. Okay. So I kind of have three very simple strands to my structure or my model. One is talent and resourcing. One is people operations. And within that sits employee wellbeing and support and business as usual. And then I have data and analytics. And each one of those strands works together to deliver an outcome. And each one of those functions will partner with the business. But they partner with the business in a field of expertise. And they have very, very clear accountability about what it is they need to deliver. So for me, it's absolutely worked, because I get real value from each one of those functions. And those functions are very agile, because as we've grown and as we've improved our business and, you know, fixed some of the real basics that were wrong, some of the real challenges that were wrong initially, those roles have been able to evolve to become much more strategic and much more future focused now. And the people within those roles can develop because they've learned so much within those roles as well. You know, and they've gone through mergers, acquisitions, you know, they've gone through significant people cultural change, you know, to deliver, you know, really great results. And you know, we have a very, very stable business right now. So we have a contact center operation with turnover that started at 60-70% 3 years ago, that now sits at 21% across the organisation.
Wow.
And contact center environments are volatile.
Yeah.
Very, very volatile. They typically attract first and second time jobbers. They're not a job that you want to do for life. It's a job that you come in, you learn, you do it well, you enjoy your experience, and you move on, and if you can develop within a business, then that's great. And why should we hire at more senior levels? Why shouldn't we evolve people, through our business and keep them for longer? And I've also found that my people operations team have had to become, particularly since the pandemic, they've had to focus. We've moved on from employee experience now. It's about life experience, because they're working from home as well as in the workplace. Then what's happening around them at home is equally as important as what's happening in the office space as well. So
really interesting. I think it's obviously, so Brightside is like a mid-sized organization. I always sort of think, if you're in a different I suppose organization, let's say a larger organization, let's say it was a multinational sort of business and things like that, do you still see the model that you have? Do you think that the model is the best model for most businesses? Or is it just that for you, when you join that organizer, in terms of that particular business's challenges, this is what you felt was the right model to move the HR function and the business forwards?
So I think this is where HR models need to be flexible, because I'm not sure my model would work in every business, because it depends on that business need. So in a huge matrix organization, for example, HR generalist HR business partners can help you get things done. They can help you navigate through the complexity around getting decisions made, and you really can see HR business partners come into their own in those roles, generalist capacity. But much more in a kind of an SME, a medium type business, then this model, it works for me in this business. In terms of my next business, who knows? It depends on what the need is at the time, but we mustn't be afraid to disrupt if it doesn't work.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. Natal, I'd really like to bring you in terms of, because obviously the organizations and things, and Kerry mentioned about employee experience and the sort of agile sort of side, and how it looked at the sort of problems and things. From the organizations that you're supporting and what you're hearing in terms of your own network, are you sort of seeing the same trend that Tom has identified in terms of organizations stripping out their business partners and new sort of structures? This is what you're seeing as well in the market at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't necessarily say it's stripping out. What I would say, it links to what Kerry is talking about, which is trying to redefine what these kind of roles mean, and do you actually need them, depending on what you're trying to deliver across the organization. And I think what it relates to, Tom is totally right in terms of the problems that we have come up against with the business partner and the center of expertise model. Back in the day, I remember, I was in often led center of expertise teams. Sometimes you weren't even supposed to go near the customer, the employee or the manager, because it was the business partner's role. So it got so kind of sort of siloed and competitive almost, which was very strange. And what's started to happen is, with the kind of the understanding of employee experience, we now know we need to deliver a much more holistic approach to what we're doing, and we need to go after the big problems. So I love Kerry's example, because this is an organization in crisis, and HR need to come together and help them solve the people part of that problem. And we can't do that if we're too siloed, and you can't do that as one person. So the HR business partner was always, I love the comment about the jack of all trades. The jack of all trades can never get things done because you're swamped with everything, or you start reinventing the wheel in every part of the business. So I think it relates to having complex problems, and complex problems, you need to have multifunctional teams that come together and solve problems, and you prioritize. So Kerry went after the most important problem. Now they'll be moving on to others, so it's about life experience. It's about other parts. There might be another part of the organization that now needs more of a talent focus. And you've got to do that as a multi-skilled, capable team. The thing where the business partner comes in, I think the conversation around accountability is really interesting, because what is your accountability there? Are you accountable to this business unit? And we know HR business partners can get very entrenched in that unit. But then we're saying, oh, no, you should be accountable to the whole strategy. Oh, no, you should be accountable to the employee experience that we're delivering out from HR. Then they became the person that had to kind of just deliver everything out to the business. But they weren't necessarily the right expert, as you said, the expert in that area. So I think we had unrealistic expectations around this. So what's really interesting is I'm hearing this conversation across a range of organizations, and it's more about what are you trying to achieve with your HR team as a whole? So some are seeing business partners become more of almost like a product owner, where you're bringing in the needs of the customers of the organization, and then you're helping the HR team prioritize what is the most important thing to work on, and how do we need, and bring in the vision and the strategy around it. Others, they're seeing them more as sort of the change expert, or the talent identifier, or maybe the coach. So I'm seeing them almost like scrum masters and coaches as well. But all of it is that you need to have this much more holistic view and whole organization view. And any model I know a few that actually tried it to work in a very agile way, but they just created great solutions for one part of the business. And so they always needed so you need a bigger kind of remit almost. So you have a fuller view of what's going on in the organization. One thing on that, actually, I just thought of one example, a team that I know that is looking at evolving this role. One dilemma they came up against was there was the people strategy, and the executive made some decisions about non-negotiables, about who we should hire and, head count, those kind of things. But in one part of the business, they were going after a sort of, a strategic partnership, and they needed to hire in that part of the business. But that wasn't ever brought through in the right way to this decision at the executive. So you had this conflict of, we're trying to do something very strategic for the business, and it wasn't getting through to the right level. So I think this is what it is. If you're too focused on one part, or you're so wrapped up in reactive work, you're not going to have that holistic view. And I think it's less we always talk about capability of business partners. I don't think it was about that. I think it's the purpose, the accountability. What's your role actually about? The word generalist, what does that mean? That is so general, isn't it? Like, how do you know what you're focusing on? Yeah.
I am one of my somebody that I've got a lot of respect for. It's a very experienced HR business partner, and one of the things he very much said to me, and it talks about this sort of siloed approach. He worked for at the time it was a rather large global medical device company, and he always said that I refer to myself as a HR broker because I'm the point of contact for the business, but then I utilize the skills and expertise of all the centers of excellence that are there, and the support that's there. We've got a question that's come in. In fact, we've got a few comments. I'm just going to sort of quickly go through some of those. So I had this on screen at the moment. So Caroline Bigsby, we had a similar model at Veolia Water, 3,500 employees at 90 locations, and that worked really well. So obviously at larger organisations, it can have an impact. Sev, building on what Tom and Kerry just said, there is a clear trend that I foresee: more focus and task force type of experts coupled with solid operations to have a differentiated employee experience. We've also had, so Mary Saunders said, I agree with Kerry, there's no one size fits all approach. What works for one organisation might not be right for others. We've had a few other questions that have come in. So let's go with Max. So this is a question for you, Tom. Don't you think that HR BPs can finally focus on the strategy now that centres of excellence are more mature? HR business partners tend to get caught on basic stuff because the lack of speed, support and response of the centres of excellence. What's your thoughts and any response to that, Tom?
Yeah, you know, HR is always super busy. I've never come to HR teams where they say, well, we are not busy. And so I think it's partly an excuse. And then HR business partners saying, I could be more strategic if I would have more time, or if we are better organized. Well, I'm probably the oldest. I'm surely the oldest in the room here. This has been a long history. So I didn't see that changing. What I also, two other comments I would like to make is, and I totally agree. I think it was Mary Saunders or someone said HR likes to talk about structure. The moment we put it on the list, or the moment I publish something about goodbye HR, then people like that. They also sometimes come to me with the question, how should we structure HR? And I totally agree with Kerry. And yeah, this is not the starting question. The starting question is, what are we trying to solve? And there is another element that we tend to focus, and I would like to hear Kerry's, too much as business support. Yes, that's one element of HR is business support, but the other element is employee support. And not only employee support, maybe also you could say society support. So the remit should be wider than we are there to support the business. Because the interests of the different stakeholders are not always aligned. Most of the time not. And in many organizations, employees don't trust HR too much. Because they sense, yeah, HR is there to support the business. But who is there to support me? And my interests are not necessarily aligned with the interest of the organization. So I think there's an other element I would like to see, and I see it emerging. So that is, you could say, real employee success, employee support, but more or less disconnected from the business. Not connected to the business, not talking to, say, hey, Natal, how are you doing? And Natal says, well, I'm not so happy. And I go to the boss and say, oh, Natal is not so happy. We should do. That's so too much focused on business. Yes, we need it all, but therefore we need to split it. We need to split it, and answering the questions on yeah, if everything is well organized, yeah, then we have a super luxury life. It's the same argument as the moment we have implemented our big HR information system, then the world will be super. Well, I've never met those organizations.
We've had a few months. That's it's funny you mentioned about the structure and about how we structure it, and I think possibly indirectly to Jane Davies Simpson said, be interesting your thoughts on HR structure and the devolvement of activity to line managers, which is certainly, you know, quite interesting in terms of that. And we're going to talk a bit more about the sort of structures as well. We've had Diana Marin has agreed with Maximiliano. So most of HR spend lots of times in operational stuff. I think some companies, they don't have a really clear idea what the function of the HR business partners are. I mean, certainly from my experience, I've obviously recruited lots of business partners, you know, both kind of global or just kind of more localized or site-based, or the title itself is completely, you know, interchangeable. It's, you know, what is a HR business partner to one organization is completely not what it is in another organization. So the whole title thing for me has always been I've got to be very careful when I take those roles on to make sure that, you know, what actually are they doing? What are the deliverables that you want? What do you want from them? What will their projects be? What's their customer, you know, going to be like, etc. So, you know, interesting point there. I've got a question from Catalin. So which is quite interesting, actually, and one that I hadn't really, because we're talking about the trend of business partners potentially, you know, being reduced potentially, but how will the home office change the role of the HR business partner? If they're the brokers, if they're supposed to be the key contacts between the business and the employees, what are your thoughts about the question that Kathleen has? So how will the Home Office change the role of the business partner? Anyone?
Well, I'll let Kerry go first.
Yeah.
We don't mean the Home Office as in the UK Home Office. We mean working from home.
Well, I guess I'd probably like to add to that we've been working at home now largely for a year, and I'd like to think that 12 months down the line, people's roles have evolved and they've become flexible as HR business partners and found different ways to support the business, just working in a different way. You know, most of us, not all businesses, but certainly a lot of businesses have adapted, and their roles have evolved. And I genuinely believe that the HR role over the past 12 months has become more and more invaluable in the business. I mean, just you have to. We've got everything. Working remotely, you have everything. Everything in front of you in terms of communication. Yeah, you have really great opportunities to, and this picks up on a piece that Tom raised. You have really great opportunity to engage with your employees, to listen to them, to invite them, and to include them into your business by creating topical debates, by creating listening groups. And then as leaders of HR functions, whether that be a business partner, because it depends on what type of business you work for, we have to earn the trust of our employees. Yeah, so we have to stand strong as leaders in a business. We have to listen to our people, and we have to be shown to be taking forward their views upwards in any organization. And employees have to be able to see that they are being included, but they're also being listened to as well, and that we're acting on their feedback, because employees, the feedback from employees is a massive gift to us. Yeah, whether they're joining our business, whether they're leaving our business, or whether they still work for us, there is nothing better than the information they give you, because it is factual, and it's factual, and it comes from the heart, and we have to capture that. And business partners are key to capturing that and feeding that up to the business in the right possible way.
Yeah.
One of the things that I suppose from, I mean, it was a question that sort of came up, and I said that we'd come back to it, because it in terms of the structure, I mean, if we're looking at different operating models of HR and how that, if we're thinking about the customer, whether, and I know Dave Ulrich talks a lot at the moment and about, you know, the customer not being the employee, but the actual, you know, the shareholders and the actual customers of the business and how that kind of relates. But if we're thinking about if it is goodbye to the HR business partner, if the roles are going to be reduced potentially, will that be replaced with technology? Will that be just the different sort of structure as sort of Kerry's done in her organisation? What do you feel will be? And this is a bit of an open question, so it could be anyone really from that perspective. But what do you think will be the kind of the future of the HR model?
Yeah, but that's back to the question. There is not the model.
No.
So
what's the problem we're trying to solve? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's different organizations in different phases in different countries, and so there's it can be all over. And then there are different solutions. You could say there are organizations that say we don't have any HR, and they are doing quite well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for that organization, because, for example, their managers are very people-oriented, they have good systems. They say, well, we don't need a lot of HR, or we outsource it. If we really need a specialist, we hire them from outside. That's not the ultimate model, but for some organizations that works very well. But there are also organizations, and that's sometimes we take it too much a kind of principal role, or and we say, for example, example I have mentioned more often is, at that organization say, all our managers need to be good coaches. That's our model. HR make that happen. Yeah, and then HR they do the usual things. They organize a training, they plan the systems, they make a workflow, and well, but the managers don't become better coaches by that. Some do, but most of them are not good coaches. So then we say it might be a good solution in some organizations to say, well, then HR takes that role. They let them coach people and be the go-to person and solve problems, etc. While the managers, some of them, they might be excellent in client-facing activities and bringing in new business, etc. Please do that. But that flexibility, if you have that flexibility, fit for purpose, fit for the organization, then it works. But it's not none of these models is the ultimate model.
Totally. And it's so contextual, and you've got to also think about where your organization is at. So I think I want to keep going back to Kerry's example at the start. It's such a great one because she was at a certain stage of need for the organization, but also skill level of HR. And now you're set up in a new way. You might even evolve to a next stage, depending on what your organization needs. I think what's interesting also just then, Leon, when you were talking about, will technology replace HR? Will the line manager? Well, all of those for me is actually different needs going on. So, and the lady or the person that's commented on, what about devolving the HR role into the line manager? Well, you wouldn't want to necessarily do that if it's a very command and control kind of pyramid type structure, because people aren't necessarily going to go to their manager with some of the issues that they might go to HR. So I think you've got to unpick it, and you've got to be thinking about, what are we trying to achieve? I'm actually working with a team at the moment, and it's a fairly large HR team, and we're trying to solve the problem of, we want to be better at prioritization. We want to articulate value better, and we want to deliver with impact. And we want to be going after the really big strategic things, because our business actually needs to transform in relation to disruption in their market. So there's sort of a crisis for the business. And they've realized to do that, they need to actually restructure themselves. But what was interesting is that when they went and did a few models, you could slice and dice it any way you wanted, and actually what we started to realize, it was about, well, what are the key skills that we need at the moment? What is the ways of working? And that, I think, is more important here. How do you start bringing in really good ways of working? And that's where I think something like an agile mindset can really help you. And then having some great sort of tools that help you. So we need to become more kind of aligned. We need to become more transparent. We need to become much more visual in our work and know how to prioritize things. We need to use data to demonstrate, the value that we're delivering, but also understand that we're working on the right things. So for me, that's all the bigger issues. And if you go and assess that, then you would start to think about, well, what's the right HR structure for us at the moment? And I've definitely met, there's some great organizations out there that doesn't have a HR team, but they have teams that come together to work on people issues, because you always need the people strategy going well for the business. But a lot of those organizations have a very strong culture of trust, transparency, sort of low hierarchy. So the business partner wouldn't even work there, because I think the classic business partner role was very associated with, let's be honest, with quite a hierarchical structure in the business. And that was part of the problem, wasn't it? That was seen as only being friends of the senior leaders rather than being there for the employees. That's what Tom was talking about earlier. So yeah, I think with all of this, you've got to look at your own organization, the own strategic issues that you face, and then start thinking about what's the right HR team to deliver that. And it's going to include data. It's going to include some great, design expertise, but some of the new skills, marketing, coding, even, design. This is all the stuff that's starting to really transform HR. And that's awesome. I'd rather debate what should we be called HR anymore.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Natal, just to pick up on your point as well, that you're starting to see many more marketing and HR teams merging together. So you're finding HR directors becoming marketing directors and vice versa, because there's such a synergy between brand and reputation and delivering those roles.
And that's that end-to-end accountability, isn't it? So if we think about employee experience or life experience, actually we possibly should be thinking about these joined up teams where we're with marketing because it's internal comms, external brand, we're with IT support because you think, your first onboarding day, if you don't have your IT sorted, it's a horrible experience, even things like compliance, legal. We actually need to work much more together to deliver out this sort of portfolio of products and services, I often call it, that actually supports the journey of your employees. And I think the conversation of your customer is so important with this, because it's your internal customer, but the whole concept now is knowing the value that flows through the business to the end customer. So that's the person that buys the products or uses the services in the community. And if you don't know how what you're doing helps that, then there's a big problem. And so everything that HR is doing should be making people be great at their job rather than adding stuff onto it. It should be enabling them to deliver value through to that end customer. And once you start thinking like this, you just start to approach the whole thing in a new mindset, and that will lead naturally to new structures. But again, we're obsessed with the one perfect model and the one perfect HRS system and the one perfect bonus and reward system, and it doesn't exist.
I think this is where, from what I've experienced as well, where where Agile HR is really kind of, as a not just the book, but just generally the kind of thought process and the movement around that has really kind of made an impact and resonated with a lot of HR leaders, because they don't want to be tied up with process and just kind of throwing the book at people, and that's very much what I hear. And certainly having that more sort of, what's the solution to what problems do we have, and then what solutions can we provide to basically minimize or get rid of those solutions.
Exactly. And if we build a great kind of environment of psychological safety, trust, this kind of thing, then we can actually move away from some of the old ways that we did HR, the policy, the handbook. I know Tom and I talk about this all the time. So if you create an environment where people, this is our values, this is our culture, this is what you sign up to. If you step outside of that, we're going to have a conversation. But within that, we trust you to make adult decisions. And we're also going to share data with you. We're going to share the way we make decisions. If you start creating environments like that, then I think the whole concept of what HR represents starts to really change. And then what you're delivering is something quite different. Yeah.
Interesting. I want to actually move the conversation on a little bit from the sort of main topic, because Tom, it's obviously you're a director and CEO and founder of the HR Trends Institute, and obviously this is very much around the trend. And I just thought we're not probably going to have you on
as well. He's really bad.
We're probably not going to have you on every month to tell us what's new. So I mean, there's obviously I know on YouTube you put a lot of these on, and people can go to the website and find out more information about these sorts of things. But I'm wondering if this is one of the trends that we're seeing in 2021. What other sort of significant trend are you seeing that businesses and HR is going through at the moment?
Yeah, let me just mention two for the discussion now.
Okay.
And one is, and it's really. I don't want to sound too negative, but many organizations are still quite toxic workplaces. And so there are many organizations, and some of those organizations are the biggest organizations in the world. If you read today, I can mention the name Amazon, for example. It's one of the biggest employers in the world. And they are creating they are, for example, they don't want unions in their organization. They create climates in warehouses which are probably unacceptable. Yeah, and still they are the biggest employers, and we all buy and order stuff from Amazon. then my question is, it's not about Amazon specifically, but where is HR in confronting and dealing with these type of issues? Toxic workplaces, but also we have had the whole Me Too discussions. We've had discussions about equality and diversity. And that is related to the subject we discussed earlier. If HR is too much associated with management, they become problem solvers. How do we get away with the problems instead of really solving and confronting organizations with these issues? And the trend is absolutely there, because the stakeholders of organizations, society, clients, their expectations are increasing that organizations take a responsible role also in relation to climate change, for example. Well, this is going to be it's already today, of course, a big issue. And I think I would expect, and I see it already, that the role of HR in these type of discussions should be a lot stronger. And it's not easy. It's not easy. So I think this is one of the, for me, and it puzzles me why it's not happening enough and why HR is not doing that. I want to mention one other. That is, we have talked a lot in the past year about COVID and what happens in post-COVID, etc. And there I see, and Kerry mentioned that it's good times for HR, and the role of HR has increased. But a lot of it has been kind of adaptation. How can we adapt to the new situation? And we did fantastic jobs as HR, for example, in relation to home working, etc. The challenge now is moving to real transformation of HR. How do we really transform HR? Not doing old, not modernizing old practices, but really changing practices in the way we work in organizations. And I think that is I hear a lot of discussions about that, and that's a big opportunity for HR to play a role in those transformations. I don't know.
Interesting.
I definitely, I think what's interesting about the first one, which Tom and I have talked, we call it kind of ethical leadership, this concept of and it is that in the pandemic, I think it's brought to life, the whole life experience of work, which is what Kerry was talking about, but also the need to actually show care and purpose to your wider society, to actually for people to want to buy your products. So what's been interesting is we have seen this backlash of, if you don't treat your workers in a great way, hey, actually, we're not really going to support you and we're not going to buy your products and services. So this connection with society is becoming really important. And HR's role in helping an organization stay accountable in that area to ensure that they're also seen as a good societal citizen, I think is really interesting. And that's climate change, that's diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's treating people fairly. It's a whole range of those. So I think it's really interesting space, and that takes a bit of guts. It takes a bit of skill. It also takes people that have, I don't know, there's a team of people that can speak up and call things out, and so that means that it's not just a HR business partner that can do that alone. Yeah.
On that point, I read an article, and I feel really bad because I can't remember who wrote it, but I read it probably about 3 or 4 months ago. And the article was talking about biodiversity and inclusion. It was talking basically about how businesses should be really focused. It should be a thing that basically their whole sort of HR function should also look at, their effect on the environment and how they're working. That should be part of it, and that it's completely overlooked. I thought it was a really great point that they made. I've just forgotten their names, so I can't attribute it to them. It's going to frustrate me because I'll probably remember after the show. But it was certainly, I will certainly put that
What's your view, Kerry?
Yeah, what's your view, Kerry?
Oh gosh, yeah, no. In terms of the future, I'm absolutely with you about HR leaders and having to stand up. It's incredibly important that we listen to understand what's happening, how people feel, and that we act on that. It's as Tom said, it's not easy to stand up sometimes and be heard in an HR role. There are not enough HR leaders on board today. Yeah, often there's a reason for that. Right? But don't let that be a barrier. That would always be my advice. It's if you go with the information and the data, I apologize using the word data again, but if you go with the facts that you've heard out there, then people will eventually listen. Just don't give up. Just be resilient. Do not give up, and be the voice of the employee as well as the organization. You can do both because they go hand in hand. You have to listen to the employee if you want to create stability and you want to drive a commercial output. It's not rocket science,
I think the data thing is key because armed with data, it becomes less the personal kind of discussion, and it becomes about what do we need to do to ensure this business is going to be successful, or our employees aren't performing as great as they could be. How do we change that? Or this is not. So data is key.
But it can be an excuse as well. So I have seen in the Dutch context sexual harassment cases, and where professors at universities, for example, for years and years and years harass students. And the response of HR and management was, oh, yeah, but we are not absolutely sure, and we don't have the right data. We need more data.
Okay.
So it was also used as an excuse not to act, while everybody knew what was going on. And there are numerous examples of that. So I agree, but at the same time, it should not be an excuse not to act.
No.
Yeah, and maybe acting is going and getting more data and kind of finding out the truth.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And sometimes you just have to be brave, and you have to, go with your intuition. If something's not right, it generally isn't right, and you have to fight that.
Yeah.
Cool. That's really really interesting. I mean, we're coming up to the end of our time. I think it just seems to be getting a little bit sort of interesting in terms of from that perspective. I think we could certainly talk about these topics for quite a long time, and certainly we've just had a comment from Shirley George, for example, really interesting, making me think about how HR is within her company and how that works, and that's really the idea behind the Hosting HR shows. We want to sort of challenge people's thoughts, let people hear what other people are doing, hopefully bring in some experts as we've had on this show and future shows and previous shows as well. So what we need to do to wrap up the show is we've got to go back to our two lies, one truth to wrap up. So Tom's got his hat on and his Rubik's Cube. Should we do it in order as we started it? So I can't remember. Was it who went first? Was it?
I started.
Okay, Kerry went first. Okay, so remind us your three again.
So my three is I was bitten by a redback spider and lived to tell the tale. Sir Tom James is my uncle, and I'm a huge Man United fan.
The last one is the truth.
I'm going redback spider.
I'm going redback spider.
I'm going menu.
So you're right, it is the spider. So I'm sorry.
We don't do points on the show, but I think there's a bonus points. I think.
Sorry, Tom James is my uncle.
That's incredible! Wow. But when was this?
Oh, many years ago. I'll give away my age.
Okay. A couple of years ago.
In the land of Oz, a few years ago.
Wow, that's amazing. Well done. Well, I'm glad that you survived, obviously. Yeah. We're getting some comments and people are enjoying the show, which is really nice. If you're enjoying it, please do drop us a like. If you're on YouTube, then please subscribe and hit the bell icon, and you'll get the future shows. Yeah, just thought I'd intervene with that. So next, Natal, was your 2 lies or your 3 facts and 2 lies and 1 truth.
I'm not born in Scotland, but I live in Scotland. I did grow up in Australia, but not Sydney. And so I do have an Aussie and a British passport. So.
Right, okay. That was so tough because I knew that you were New South Wales.
Exactly,
from the discussion.
And I went to Sydney University, but and so yeah. No, I grew up in a little coastal town in Australia. So
nice.
All right.
Excellent. So, Tom, it's yours. So we've got the cars. So yeah, the intimate. Go on. Go with the cars. Is the order you did it?
Oh.
Yeah, cars. Maybe not.
You had a room, right,
Rubik's
with cars
Cube.
in it.
Please let
10
it be.
seconds. I said
Can I do
no.
it?
I'm going cube.
Cube.
Shall I show
I'm an
it?
Inter Milan fan.
Yeah,
You can't do it.
I've never managed to do it once, the cube. So there's an interesting documentary I can recommend. It's on Netflix. It's about champions.
Yeah, it's
and
amazing.
They do it in below 6 seconds.
I know.
But they do it
in how many?
6.
And they do it constantly. They do because if you don't exercise, they can't. It's Chinese. It's a very interesting documentary. It's called, I don't know, The Cube or something. But watch it and be amazed. Yeah. But Inter is going to be champion this year.
I've not really followed Syria. I don't know where they are. I always think it's just Juventus.
And for Juventus was for the last years, but this year Inter will become.
But are you supposed to go for Ajax?
In the Netherlands, I go for Ajax. All right, but that was too easy.
But what if they play against each other?
Yeah, then I'm for Ajax, of course. Okay, good to meet you.
Yeah. Right, so I've got to do mine, haven't I? My last one. So mine. Did I say what mine was?
No.
I can't even remember what I did.
I don't remember hearing.
All right, I'll do mine quickly then, and you can all decide. I didn't do it. I completely forgot. Right, so mine is, and I've got them written down so that hopefully I can do them deadpan. So firstly, I have a brother that lives in Australia. There's a lot of Aussie theme going on here. It's a bit strange. So I nearly became a professional tennis player. And I was once stung by a jellyfish, were my 3. So you haven't got so long to digest it. But if you want to take a vote, so that was brother that lives in Australia, nearly became a professional tennis player, and I was once stung by a jellyfish. What do you reckon?
The middle one is the tennis player is Struce.
I thought. Well, did you tell me that your brother lives in Australia? I'm trying to remember that. I think he did, didn't he? Someone. Is
that your vote?
Yeah, it's my vote.
Okay, Kerry, what's your vote?
Tennis player.
Okay. So the answer is that my brother lives in Australia. I'm absolutely hopeless at tennis. I mean, honestly, at school, I couldn't. If I tried to serve, it just went into the next court along. I just could not get to it at all. And I've never been stung by a jellyfish. So in fact, I get although I live by the sea now, I get a little bit scared of the sea. Probably because I grew up in the Midlands of the UK where there's no water, so it's all a bit new for me. Had some great comments coming through, so thank you very much for those that have watched today. So please do give us a thumbs up. If you'd like to watch, Natal has her own YouTube channel. I'll put that on the YouTube notes so you can start to watch some of those. Obviously, Natal and Tom have HR Trends. What's it called? Talking HR Trends channel as well. So please go and watch some of theirs. It's much more regular than our show from that perspective. So please do register there. And Kerry, thank you very much for joining us. Tom, thank you. Natal, thank you very much well. And we'll see you again next month.
Have a great
night. Well, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.